Whipple Family Misadventures, Book 7, Mischief in Their Eyes, Chapter 10.
Almost done.
Wade said as he and Tom left the station in downtown Helena and headed back to his car. Fortunately, Day 3 of the state mandatory training was over, and all they had left to do was the last bit of the final day, and that was it. Then they were free to go back home and get away from all the stress here.
Just one more day.
And it could not come fast enough for Wade. He didn't know what he was going to do the following year, but he already knew that he was not bringing the boys again. He would plan it out months in advance to make sure he never had to go through the worry of leaving them alone for hours in a strange place where they were not safe and were constantly tempted to find a way out and into trouble.
I know the state scheduled it so we could stay in the hotel tomorrow night and leave on Monday morning if needed. But unless the training that they got left goes really long tomorrow, I want to drive home tomorrow and just be done with this.
Get back to where it was safe, where they didn't have to worry about trying to hide 3 very active boys, and could relax once again. If Wade was being honest, he wanted to take several days off after this and do absolutely nothing for as long as he could stand it. Probably wouldn't happen, but he at least wanted to get back to his own home and sleep in his bed again. Tom nodded, casting a long look out the window, like he was missing his wife, and was mentally counting down the hours until he was back with her.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm ready to go home as well.
One more day. They just had to get through one more day, and then this would be over and life would go back to normal. Wade could handle it for a few hours and wake up. At least, that's what he was thinking when they went back up to the hotel, opened the door to Tom's hotel room, and found it quiet. None of their sons in sight. At first, there was a horrible confusion, like it could have been some kind of mistake.
They weren't in your room today, right?
Wade asked, staring blankly at the empty room.
Yes?
Just to be sure, they checked his room and found it empty as well.
Why? Just why?
Wade said slowly, picking up a candy wrapper that had been carelessly left on the carpet, not understanding why this kept happening.
Didn't you know? It's practically a rule that kids of police officers run wild.
The confusion and shock over finding them missing was replaced with anger, a slow burning rage fueled by the feeling of being done with being ignored and not listened to. Tired of those 2 boys thinking they could just do whatever they wanted and get away with it, especially when they had been told multiple times why they had to stay in the rooms.
When I catch up to them...
Wade muttered under his breath. He didn't even know how he was going to handle this situation, but he was going to make sure they understood it this time. On the heels of the anger came the sudden realization that the 3 of them were somewhere in the hotel, probably having the time of their lives thinking they could get away with whatever they wanted, alone, and most likely didn't even know how close they were to danger.
Let's go find them.
Wade had absolutely no idea where to start, or even how to search without raising suspicion among the other people inside the hotel, but nodded, set his jaw, and followed him out. Next to Shadow, Silver looked confused.
What's Seattle? It's a city. Hey, Jerkface! We're not going to Seattle or anywhere else. Let us out or we'll break this door down before we kick your butt.
I'm terrified, really, shaking out here. But go ahead, try it. Start smashing your way and find out what happens.
Outside, there was a click, like something turning on, and all of them heard a crackling sound. A terrible, constant sound that invoked fear.
Come on out.
A look of uneasiness came over Sonic's face as he glanced back at the other 2.
What did he do?
Neither of them had an answer and didn't want to find out what that was and what could happen if they tried.
The 3 of you be good and stay away from the door until I come back and you'll be fine. Or not and suffer the consequences. Your choice. But I'll say this, it'll hurt. Anyway, as soon as I get the last one back, we're leaving.
A door slammed a moment later.
Who's the last one?
Silver whispered, but Shadow didn't care and couldn't stop shaking as the full weight of this horrible situation settled over him. They were trapped and he didn't see a way out of there, or one that didn't end up in something horrible.
I told you this was a bad idea. We should have left. I told you.
It was taking everything he had not to have a complete freak out and not absolutely lose it right then and there. His mind was firing on all cylinders. The reminder that they were now stuck. Someone wanted to send them off to some buyer. Their dads had no idea where they were. The guy outside was a complete stranger, and this was dangerous. All that combined was too much for his mind to handle, and he slowly sank down to the floor, trembling violently, and started to rock back and forth.
Shads, are you okay?
Shadow growled, curling into a partial ball. He thought it was obvious that he was not, that this was the most not okay he had been in a long time. But that was the only response he could make, as he couldn't speak anymore. All his words were gone. He had no idea why this happened when he became extremely stressed, but it did.
My brother needs help! Please, let us out, or someone come help him!
No one came to help. Shadow didn't want to break down crying and screaming. Not here, not when they were in danger, not when everything was going badly, and especially not when there's a chance that man could hear him. He kept rocking, beating his fists against his knees wildly, attempting to hold everything together and keep from losing it horribly. By some miracle, Silver realized what he needed and grabbed the lone blanket from the corner and draped it over him. Grabbing it, Shadow yanked it over his head to hide, put his face in his hands, and kept rocking, trying to breathe. If his dad had been there, he would have told him to breathe. That was important. At that moment, he wanted his dad so badly. There was no way he was leaving this hotel with that strange person. He couldn't do it. Things were finally starting to get better, and he was becoming more comfortable with his new life and having a dad and brothers and friends. He couldn't leave it behind and start all the way over. Not again. Slowly, he became aware that Sonic was sitting on one side of him and Silver was sitting on the other side, both of them talking to him gently.
It's okay, we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah, bro, we'll be alright.
Shadow really wanted to ask how they knew that, how they could be so sure. For them to escape, they first needed a plan, especially when that man had set some kind of trap for them if they even tried. That was the difficult part. They didn't even know what it was. They couldn't figure out a way around it.
Don't worry, we'll get out of here and we'll be just fine.
By sheer strength of will, Shadow was able to hold back the overwhelming onslaught of emotions that were threatening to overwhelm him. It wouldn't last forever, and he would have to deal with it sooner or later. But for the moment, he had managed to put them aside. Those feelings were replaced by exhaustion, like the effort of holding himself together had drained him of energy. But he somehow had done it. Gasping and so trembling, he pulled the blanket down to his lap, tugging on the strands, hoping that he could get through the next few minutes and keep it together. Long, slow breaths helped a little bit, but that only went so far.
Are you going to be okay?
Shadow was not okay, not by any measure, but he gave a tiny little nod and pretended like he was, so they wouldn't worry anymore. They needed to get out of this place and needed to do it soon. He didn't have time to waddle on the floor and waste precious minutes.
Can you teleport us out?
Frowning, Shadow thought about it for a moment. He had already found out that teleporting was tiring for him to do, especially since he was still figuring out how it worked and how he could move in between places. Added on top of that, he felt spent from attempting to deal with his emotions. This was going to be so draining. He shook his head. He was very sure that he couldn't teleport the three of them together. The last time he tried that, it hadn't worked. At all, and he didn't want to give either of them false hope. Shadow didn't even know if he could teleport himself at the moment, but knew he had to try. If he got out of there, then he could get help. Squeezing his eyes shut, he thought of anywhere else but this tiny cramped closet where they weren't safe, that they had to escape from, where everything would get much worse. Even though he was emotionally fragile, and felt like he was barely keeping everything together, he had to do this. There wasn't any other options. He had to do this. It didn't matter that he felt awful and this could increase his miserable feelings. If he didn't, for almost a minute, nothing happened, no matter how hard he tried. When he thought about how much he strained, for almost a minute, nothing happened, no matter how hard he tried, what he thought, how much he strained. Grimacing, he tried again and again. He had to do it. He had to do it. He had to. And then it finally happened. He did it. As soon as Shadow disappeared, a momentary feeling of relief came over Silver. His brother would get back upstairs, get their dads, and everything would be alright. Well, alright as in they would be safe. But then their dads would be upset with what happened. He sighed, knowing it would be worse this time. The two of them sat on the floor, watching the little crack of light under the door, waiting for something to happen. Silver could tell that his friend was getting antsy and wanted nothing more than to break out, not sit around and wait.
I hope Shadow will be back soon.
Silver said softly. It didn't take that long to get back upstairs, unless...
What if my dad and your dad don't come back for hours? By that time it's too late because that evil man out there already took us.
He turned to his friend, getting upset.
What if that happens?
Sonic smiled in what was supposed to be comforting.
I'm sure that won't happen. Shadow won't leave us here. He'll do something, like call your dad to get him to come sooner. And if the guy comes back before he does, we'll take him down.
His words were so confident, Silver tried to believe that would happen, that they would be alright, that it would be possible for the two of them to fight the guy, even though he seemed smart, tricky, and like he was always several steps ahead of them. But the gray hedgehog was still worried over the chance that it might take place.
Okay.
The blue hedgehog nodded.
What happened with Shadow before he left? Was he okay?
Silver shrugged, only because he didn't know.
Has it happened before?
I don't think so. At least not like that.
Silver admitted. He had seen his brother get upset, or sometimes he twitched his fingers, or flapped his hands, or stopped talking when he seemed stressed, like around strangers or new places, but never to the extent they had seen earlier. It had scared him, but he knew that he had to help his brother, since their dad wasn't there to do it.
But maybe my dad knows.
There was a beat of silence.
Do you like having a brother?
Sonic asked, leaning back and crossing his arms behind his head.
Yeah, I do. Most of the time, he's alright. Sometimes he's annoying or weird or doesn't want to do anything fun. But most of the time, he's good. Hey, you ever wish you had a brother or sister?
Yeah, sometimes. It would be cool to have someone to hang out with all the time.
Silver understood that. He knew what it was like to be lonely, to want to have someone who was around constantly, and he knew that having friends was different than having siblings.
Just hope you don't have to share your room.
Out of nowhere, they heard a slam. Both of them stood up, alert, ready for anything, and moved towards the front of the closet, listening at the door for clues of what was happening.
All right, that's taken care of.
They heard the man yell, sounding like he was coming closer to the bedroom.
Put her in there for a moment.
The two of them heard the bedroom door open and the sounds of someone walking in.
You're going to sit in here. You're going to be quiet, and you're not going to do anything else until we're ready to go, or the trip is going to be very long for you. Got it?
Glancing at Sonic, Silver knew that guy wasn't talking to the two of them. Whoever he had been talking to didn't answer him, and the main door shut again, with a distant sounds of discussion back in the main. A few 10 seconds passed. The only sounds was the cackling noise, and then both of them heard sniffling, like the person outside there was crying or trying to hold it back.
Hello?
Who said that?
Over here, in the closet.
They both heard very light footsteps as the voice got louder, as if coming to investigate.
What are you doing in there?
Silver tried to peer out of a crack in the wood in an attempt to see who they were talking to, but was unable to see anything.
He locked us in here and said something about Seattle and a trip there.
Yeah, he's been saying that for over a week. That's where we're going. Are you guys not?
Sonic and Silver exchanged a look, almost immediately knowing what she was asking.
Not human?
Huh, yeah.
No, we're not. We're hedgehogs. Both of us are. And that guy out there, he seemed to know about it. He wasn't surprised or anything. Your dad is really mean.
He's not my dad. He's a human. Besides, I've only known him for a little while.
Oh,
What's outside the closet door? Can you shut it off?
Huh?
He turned on some crazy machine so we can't just bust out of here. Do you see what it is? Can you turn it off?
Oh yeah, I see it. I'll try.
They heard her making a humming noise, and then there was some clatter. Silver bounced on the balls of his feet while they waited, as they listened to the sounds of a girl attempting to work on whatever was out there. He wished he could see and could offer to help.
How did he catch you?
we're here with our dads. Not in here, but here like the hotel. And I heard him talking about you, someone who is like us. So we came down to try and find you. And then he dropped us.
Both of them heard something clatter to the ground.
Your dad's? Really? Here?
Yeah. Well, my dad isn't the same person as his dad. I have a mom too, but she's not here at the hotel with us. She had to stay home. Our dads are friends and they work together.
I have a brother as well. He's like us too. He went to go get help.
Wow. Okay, I got the machine. Let me just...
The horrible crackling sound stopped.
Got it. Although I don't know why I had to turn it off for you guys. I don't think it did anything.
The two of them looked at each other again, the sudden realization that the horrible man had tricked them even further before Sonic curled into a spin dash and blasted the door to the closet off, and they both safely climbed out.